From Notable Capital, this is Founder Real Talk, where we get real about the challenges that founders and startup executives face and how they've grown from tough experiences. Founder Real Talk is part of the Notable Capital family of podcasts, and you can access all our podcasts at notablecap.com. I'm your host, Glenn Solomon. Without further ado, here's today's episode. Hey everyone, I'm Glenn Solomon, Managing Partner at Notable Capital, and I'm here with the co-founders of LocalStack, Gerta Sheganaku and Waldemar Hummer. Thank you both for joining us on Founder Real Talk. We're really excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having us. Excited to be here.
So there's big news today. We are thrilled to announce that Notable Capital has led LocalStack's successful Series A funding. We couldn't be more excited about joining you on this journey as you guys transform the developer experience for cloud-based development. To kick things off, Gerta, Waldemar, I wanted to ask you, maybe talk a little bit about the problem you're solving with LocalStack.
Absolutely. So with LocalStack, we're basically providing a cloud development platform. The problem that we're seeing is that cloud has been built with scalability in mind, right? It's this hugely scalable production system, but the developer experience is kind of often a bit of an afterthought, right? So you have these slow cycles of pushing changes to the cloud. Things take a couple of minutes to deploy. Then you run some tests, maybe have to redeploy again. So really slowing developers down, especially if they're used to having some kind of localized development environment. So what we provide is bringing the cloud closer to your local machine, allowing you these quicker cycles of iteration, and really giving back folks kind of control over their environments on the local machine in a sense.
This quicker cycle of iteration, we talk a lot at Notable Capital about the importance of product velocity. And it just appears that with LocalStack, the customers we've talked to rave about their ability to move faster as a result of working with you. And spinning up cloud resources for testing, paying for those resources, and redeploying code. It's costly. It's time consuming. It feels like you guys have really hit on something. Users we've spoken to, again, they rave about the productivity gains they're seeing. You guys have 8 million weekly sessions, over 900 paying customers. That's incredible for a company at Series A stage. You have found tight product market fit. Maybe talk a little bit about some of the examples of how you've seen LocalStack customers streamline their cloud development process and improve that all-important product velocity.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really thrilling to see how much we've been able to achieve only as a seed stage company. Some of our customers really span across the board. We have very modern organizations like Chime being one of our customers that are really using LocalStack across their entire CI/CD platforms, to more traditional banks that unfortunately we don't have permission to name them, but we have a number of Fortune 100 banks that are really using LocalStack to give developers really control over being able to develop and test very early on, when usually in the banks you would have a lot of permissions that you would need to request cloud resources and so forth, and really slow down developers in the sense of them not being able to get their job done, although they really are focused on innovation and really want to speed up the development cycles. So it's a very broad set of problem statements that we can solve. The advantage of LocalStack is that it's really something that you can use wherever you would be using real AWS. So we are, so to say, a drop-in replacement, not trying to replace the cloud in any sense, but really making sure that we are a very strong on-ramp into AWS cloud services. And with that, it's really thrilling to see that without us really trying too hard, without us having a marketing department, or without us really having a sales department, people are really finding us and making sure that with LocalStack they can get more productive from the very first lines of code in the organization.
Well, clearly something's going right with millions and millions of downloads and so many production customers already. Given that the experience is so high fidelity, has anybody tried to run in production with LocalStack, and what do you say to them when they try that?
Yeah, actually, we've had some very, very interesting requests from even nuclear power plants wanting to run LocalStack in their production environments, and we've very much encouraged them not to do so. We definitely do not see LocalStack as something that would replace AWS, as I said before. It's really an on-ramp. It's meant for developer productivity and efficiency.
But I would imagine it's enticing for companies like nuclear power plants who probably really have difficulty getting onto the cloud given the security requirements and needing to stay air gapped, that they can maybe avail themselves of the best of the cloud and run in production. But that's maybe a different business for another day. It is pretty cool though to hear that customers as varied as Silicon Valley fast moving companies like Chime and the world's biggest banks using you. Clearly, this is a solution that spans the interests of many vertical industries, which is super exciting for us as a new investor. Would love to ask a little bit about your personal backgrounds. It's clear that the two of you were kind of purpose built as founders to build LocalStack. How did that become the case? Tell us a little bit about your journeys and what led you to work on this problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So the story of LocalStack goes back all the way to around 2017 timeframe when I was working for a company called Atlassian and was basically working in their data engineering team. And we had this use case of a lot of different data pipelines running on AWS and really trying to figure out how can we test these pipelines without resource conflicts and all these slow wait and deployment times. So we put out the first version of this, put it in the open source on the Apache 2 license, and then there was a couple of points in time where we really gained some traction in the community. So there was a tweet from Jeff Barr, the chief evangelist at AWS, who kind of tweeted about LocalStack, and then overnight we got like 5,000-6,000 stars on GitHub. And then it was kind of growing over the years, really more as a side project. And then back in 2020, 2021, we actually started building a pro version of LocalStack with initially just a swipe credit card kind of thing, self-serve. And then one thing led to the other, and in 2021 we started building a company around LocalStack.
Amazing. It must have been quite an experience to see people start to swipe their credit card and realize, hey, we might actually have a business here.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think also Waldemar doesn't always like to say this, but he's done a PhD in computer science in the testing space. So I think there's a lot that he has faced personally in the sense of how to develop and test applications and really think that through. Me personally, I also spent a lot of time, initially a bit in academia, but then quickly worked in product management as well as sales organizations in also testing companies. So we kind of both have focused quite a lot on testing and test automation in our careers.
But it is fascinating to hear that this was a side project. This was an open source. The popularity of the open source grew organically. It wasn't something you were you got a tweet helped inspire a lot of new GitHub stars, which begets more users, and then things started to cycle on themselves. When you launched a pro version, you started to see some actual revenue come in. Was there a moment where the two of you realized this could be something? Like maybe we should stop making this the side hustle and become the primary hustle. And what was that like?
Yeah, there was a few interesting points. I think first of all, like just seeing the signups coming through on the website when you first put out the pro version. So there was some very big names, like big US banks, for example, that were coming through and saying, okay, is there an enterprise version of LocalStack that we can purchase? And it was literally just a side project. The other interesting point was when we first put out some product telemetry. So we started collecting some anonymized telemetry, even in the open source product. And we put this out as a very small instance running on an EC2 on AWS, and basically overnight this whole instance was crashing because there were so many events coming through. So we saw that this is so widely used out there in the community that even the telemetry server was going down. So I think those were some signals early on where we saw, okay, there is clearly something behind this, and I think again it took us some conviction to quit our day jobs. It took quite some courage, but I think in the end it was probably the best decision that we've done so far.
The interesting piece is, of course, also to understand that there's an actual business behind it, and it's not just a lot of community users leading to our service breaking down. So when we first established also our Slack channel, where we started supporting users firsthand, we saw that they're working for those large organizations. So we were interested to see, okay, maybe there is something that we can actually sell here with LocalStack. We put out the first kind of paid version, and looking at the signups, it was really the first time that we could see the names behind those anonymized users, and that was a very clear indication for us that there's definitely something behind this.
At Notable Capital, we've been really lucky to work with some great open source oriented businesses in the past, whether it be HashiCorp or Vercel or Streamlit, Coder, a number of really interesting open source businesses that have achieved varying degrees of amazing success commercially. And the thing that I've noticed is there's two impossible jobs that you have to accomplish. The first job is you have to build an open source that becomes wildly popular and that people actually want to use. That's really hard to do, and you guys have done that. Obviously, LocalStack is, as we talked about, incredibly prolific now in its usage and only growing from here. And then the second impossible thing you need to do is figure out, how do we build a commercial business around this community? And it feels like you're really on to that now with all the customers that you've got, and some, in a wide variety of industries, some very big companies who've really committed and are clearly standardizing their development practices on LocalStack. So that's super exciting. You have an incredible customer list. Companies like Autodesk, Apple, Workday, NASA, to name a few, which is just incredible. As you guys look into your crystal ball and think about the future, what do you see out there for the future of building and testing in the cloud world, and how does LocalStack fit into that future?
Yeah, it's definitely. It really seems like we've hit a nerve with our offering. So far we've been focusing on our high fidelity emulator, which is really sort of the foundation for everything we do. It's really giving you this local development environment, without having to be connected to the real cloud, serving as an on-ramp into the system, as Gerta mentioned, right? So we're never a replacement for something like a staging or test environment in the cloud, but we're literally shifting left all the efforts for development, testing, and giving these localized environments. So some of the exciting features that we're now working on and new directions is anything around team collaboration, right? So how can we use this base technology, this emulator, to really deal with state and state management, and make it easier to collaborate on applications and cloud software. And the other thing that's interesting is we're basically going beyond AWS. That's something that is happening as we speak. So we have started working on a first version of a Snowflake emulator, which gives you a localized test environment for Snowflake. It's very early days, working with some early customers, early adopters of this. But there's some very clear, strong signals that there is something out there that can also, over time, support some more advanced use cases like cloud migration, if you want to migrate a workload from one cloud to another, and do some early testing without actually touching the real resources in the real clouds. So I guess those are some exciting directions that we're currently looking into.
That's fantastic. Well, this is a first for me in the past several months, in that we've actually spoken for 15 minutes without mentioning AI. How does AI fit into the future of LocalStack, do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely something we think about as well. These days you can't not think about AI. So I think there's a couple of angles. One is just increasingly supporting AI developers and their development workflows for developing AI models and the inference around it. So if we think about AI, a lot of it is also just the data curation, like the data pipelines, and just the whole machinery around the training of models. So I think we have a pretty strong offering there already. And we're starting to double down on services like AWS Bedrock, for example, SageMaker, and really giving also a localized environment and experience. We're not going to have the full-fledged capabilities of a large-scale, GPU cluster on the local machine, obviously, right? But just for the functional aspects of creating these AI pipelines, LocalStack can be a huge enabler there as well.
Makes a lot of sense. Any other product updates or announcements, or just tease what people should expect to see from you? You mentioned Snowflake. Will we see more cloud environments supported over time? How should your customers and onlookers be thinking about the future of LocalStack?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we have a pretty strong push on some developer experience features. So depending on what this episode will come online, but we have reInvent coming up. So the AWS reInvent conference, where we also showcase a booth and some of the new product features. We work on a new feature that we call Event Studio, which is essentially a way to inspect event traces in event-driven architectures and give like deep inspection capabilities. And I can maybe mention that we're starting to work Snowflake, as I mentioned, but also Azure. So that's something that a lot of our users have requested for a long time already. And I think that with this new upcoming partnership together with Notable, we have the capabilities to actually build that out as a new feature in the upcoming quarters.
Thanks for sharing that. And I'd say that on behalf of the whole team at Notable Capital, Waldemar, Gerta, we are so excited. We're thrilled to become investors in LocalStack. Your journey up till now, as you've just discussed, has been nothing short of amazing. And we're just very excited for what the future can hold. With LocalStack, developers are going to streamline workflows. They're going to save time. They're going to become help their companies become higher velocity product machines, and we know that equals lots and lots of value. So you're going to unlock a ton, and we're excited to be on that journey with you. Thanks so much for joining us, and good luck for the future.
Thanks so much for having us.
Super excited in the journey.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Founder Real Talk. We really hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard, please rate and review us on your podcast app to help others find this podcast. If you have any questions you'd like to ask our guests or founders you'd like to hear on this podcast, feel free to email us at frt@notablecap.com. Notable Capital is a global venture capital firm based in the U.S., focused on early to growth stage companies in business and consumer applications and cloud infrastructure, which includes AI, cybersecurity, data, DevOps, and more. The firm has offices in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, and New York. We invest primarily in the US, Israel, Europe, and Latin America. Notable Capital's enterprise portfolio includes companies such as BitSight, Block, Dscope, Gerta, HashiCorp, Monte Carlo, Neon, Nozomi Networks, Orca Security, Slack, Synac, Vercel, Zendesk, and many more. Learn more at notablecap.com or follow us on X and LinkedIn at Notable Capital.
This episode was produced by Sashi Productions, music produced by Gus Culpo. The opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individuals only and do not reflect the views of their respective employers or affiliates. The information provided is for informational purposes only and should not be considered or deemed to be as investment advice in any way. Thanks again for tuning in.